Well, hello there, everyone. You'd like to show you right here of talking about for Brave America right here, and you're talking about anything about what you call getting ready for a speech right here, and at 102 is to where that if we're going to be signing something or if anything if we're going to be what you call working these sorts of tax documents, and let's just say that if you're going to be giving these sorts of speech, and people are like one to where that yeah, it sounds a little bit like a cartoon to where whenever we start talking about something and then you're likely thinking too is that yeah, I have right here some printouts right here. I don't know if we've all seen this right here, but there's some printouts right here, and you can see this right here. This was supposed to be maybe just a little bit like a class assignment right here that I went and showed right here. It's just like a little boy right here, and let's just say if he's singing for the Star Spangled Banner right here, and I know. If most of us would know about how to sing the Star Spangled Banner, is that the gentlemen will hold their hands over their hearts and just to sing the Star Spangled Banner is out, for brave America in front of the American flag right here. Exactly, what exactly does that necessarily mean about is talking about right here, talking about for brave America in front of the American flag right here, especially for 2020. So you're likely thinking too is that yeah, for for college junior and as well as for all Americans and children for the freedom for what we stand for and for what matters. So if we're going to be giving a speech though, that's basically what I mean right there of talking about for brave America and so yeah, that it sounds just a little bit like a cartoon, no, but we see right here is this right here would be example right here of kind of like a president seal right here. So what about the president seal that Marcy makes it so special and as well as for talking about whenever you see the president's speech or could also maybe be by if you're going to be maybe be doing an assignment or project based on for what the president say or for what goes on in this country. And you're likely thinking too that most of the time though that it's basically, if you want to look at it, like a stamp. That stamp it's supposed to represent for the government, right? And you're likely thinking too that really though about the seal right here, like the with government, and at the time, in case if somebody were also say too, is that really that how do you pronounce government spelled backwards? So let's just say that if it's not going to be you say for government, it's going to be your Tiarago or something like that, but you see right here, I'm talking about with the president seal right here, and you have here for Brave America right here. But then, of course, on the inside right here, you got right here's a duplicate right here. So a lot of times it sure seems that way to where that for duplicate for extra copy, and then you have right here of talking about right here is with the classmates. So let's just say that if you're going to be making a speech in front of a few classmates, and they're like I'm thinking too is that if you're going to go and maybe pick a president, from maybe from back in the early 1980s or something like that, maybe back in the 70s and 102 exactly about which one. I'm like, yeah, if it's going to be Abraham Lincoln, have any source of American history about most of these presidents, such as the promises that were made, and as well as so typical healing, and so that's why it sure seems that way. That have right here is with the gray right here, and like anybody likely one or two that you're gonna make this tease of talking about is like yeah that your grades is to where you start talking to a few of your classmates and want to know too is that maybe you didn't do so well on that quiz on the history exam or something like that, and want to know too that yeah, like you still be my friend, but still, I know that with me though, you have right here is talking about these paintings right here, and if we can all see this right here, right, and I have right here my Photoshop work right here, but these right here, this right here would be example right here of like me along with one of my classmates right here, and it's supposed to be like a grade book right here. So let's just say if this was supposed to be for like American history, something like that, and at 102 is that what does that usually mean whenever most students had that look on their eyes, such as if you got like what you call a blue reflection, if you can see a reflection inside somebody's eyes, does that usually kind of mean true feeling or something like that, or if anything, the stuff that maybe that you would see maybe around doctor's care or something like that. But still, I know that with me though is I talk up say for Brave America though, and people say that yeah, are you really afraid to speak in front of a lot of people and just tell them about your true feelings about something? So let's just say that yeah, that other than maybe a telephone call, and people may want or two that yeah, a telephone call, and like I say that yeah, that you'll really though shy to talk about something over the phone, and compared to what you call that, whenever you actually look at the print. So yeah, that are you really afraid to read something out loud to about maybe 10 or so other children, and you want to go and read them a story or something like that? But talk about right here for Brave America. It's really about what you see right here is I show right here is a boy right here who's brave enough to talk and make a speech in front of a lot of people talking about something important. And let's just say if it's supposed to be maybe a statement or something like that. And you have right here's the White House right here. So I know that we all probably thinking too. It's like yeah, the White House. That's for the president, and you say that if you do research about the American history as well, but let's just say though that that yeah that maybe the fact of the matter is that to where anything that you're going to be talking about is to where that there's going which called be facts and opinions as well as comments, and one of those will be is to where that the things that you can maybe do that 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 would make a difference, such as that you make a conclusion as well as for anything that you maybe want to talk about, such as a certain topic or subject to some matter, and talk about reasons and causes as well as the conclusions. So you have right here, I'm talking about with it, the classroom right here. And so let's just say though that if it's supposed to be like a history project right here, and you put together some paintings right here and just talk about a few students that for what they think about your work especially. And what I know too is that yeah, that can't really for friend also mean this like to where don't be afraid to talk about something. So yeah, don't be afraid to talk about this, and don't be shy. And so yeah, that in case if anybody were to ask me though, that a lot of times that I kind of call that as just to where that whenever people say shy, a lot of times I'm like, well, I'm not really shy, I'm just nervous. But you made me think as to where shy and nervous are basically the same thing. But still, it talk about as I say, yeah, talk about for friend though, and as well as what as another and send them for like for A and B right here. But still, it let's just say that that maybe if A stood for audition. So let's just say that if you were doing very well on something, and then that there was something that what you call audition, and so yeah, I'm like, can A really stand for audition, such as to where the teacher's going to give you some extra work just for maybe some for extra credit, yeah, for extra credit, and so sometimes though it sure seems that way that that whenever if you're going to be working on something and talking about something, and you likely learn too that a lot of time where does that extra credit really come from? But you talk about right here. I mainly want to talk about here is the president's seal right here, and for like the seal, what does exactly does the seal represent? And people are likely thinking too is that if you're going to maybe come up with the design and think about is that if I'm going to be drawing a seal right here, and you're likely thinking as to where exactly what the seal basically means is like, especially one of my designs, and I could probably say too that if I'm going to be this type of design right here is used for you even for my portfolio. And a lot of people are likely thinking too is that I have right here, if we can see this right here, I have written on here in sideways. It's like a type of a digital typo right here, your type of typography right here, to where I show right here is I write into like an angle right here. So about how many of us are really good on reading something, especially if it's going to be sideways or going vertical or somewhere like that, like a round type, around the edges or something like that. And so, like I think is that, yeah, I'm like you. The text cannot really read blah blah blah, but what the like, basically what the reading is about say talk. But I'll go and read it to everybody here. But it says right here, I'm talking about the Department of Education, the seal, world represents the promises that we made, and here and for who does the best they can based on the source of of agreement and as well as for any governments that bills that are passed, stuff like that. So it's basically that for anything that is related to you know educational reasons, and as well as maybe if you want to take down notes or something like that. So anybody say that, yeah, we all pretty much know that if you're going to maybe have like a seal like this right here, and maybe do like a redesign right here of a seal right here, and I could maybe use this right here just to write down a few notes, such as what my accomplishments are and what my goals are, for source of education. And so that's why I think about this toward it. Why do you think that why is the seal real important? And then maybe if it's like a stamp, why is the stamp most important? And I guess if you want to cause this to where yeah, is a seal a little bit maybe example of like a smaller phase, as to where if you do very well on it, the history will include it on that paper or something like that. But really though, that because I know with me though, like for the American Eagle right here, that in case if anybody were to ask me that like the American flag, and as well as a lot of the toys and kites and stuff like that. I mean, so yeah, if you could maybe include like the American Eagle, like what you would maybe see on like a president seal, that a lot of times though, that really though, that would that mainly make maybe the grade a little bit more special whenever if teachers were to do that, such as that really though, that not really, because that really that's really supposed to represent for the Constitution. I'm like, say yeah, mainly for the government, not really anything about research though, but really that it's not really supposed to represent for any source of grade. But let's just say that teachers, when maybe you weren't, as to where that if they're going to include like a sticker right here, I'm talking about for the seal right here. And with that seal though, that the teachers would probably say too that yeah, that if you were to include the seal right here, and maybe if it's supposed to be like a test, where what does this symbol right here mean, and what does that mean right there? And some students that might even say that yeah, that part right there would also represent for whenever the wars that were going on from the year that when America's whenever they won the war during that time of the year, the constitutional, and I included a few stars right there. So I know that like with me though, that whenever I was working on this design right here, I was thinking too that go ahead and include a few stars right there. You're represented for the seal, but still mainly the American Eagle right here, and along right here for Brave America right here. So really though, that whenever I think about the President's seal though, that you necessarily think about about the grade, or if anything that you're going to go ahead and just kind of put together like a design for the President's seal, just because, and just to kind of remember a few things, a few topics that you may remember since history class, and as well as if you were in like a social studies class, to where if you were doing any studying about a certain designer, or maybe if it could be a certain president. And here lately, it's been about a certain president. I'm like, here lately, it's been about if it's going to be Jimmy Carter, or if it's going to be Ronald Reagan, or if it's going to be Bill Clinton, or some president like that. But really, though, that how many teachers are maybe going to say, yeah, well, why do you think that maybe Democrat, but between Democrats and Republicans, and maybe libertarian parties or something, maybe like that. So let's just say that if it's for around election time, that at the time that you learn too about a lot of things that you hear about or talk about, Democrats and Republicans, though, that you thinking too is to where that for who's brave enough to talk about it, is like yeah, the Republicans. The Republicans are those who support certain things that go on in the country, and then the Democrats are the ones that support certain things and certain bills and all that. But the way I think about too, though, that really though, that if there was a separate seal for Republicans and maybe a separate seal for Democrats, I'm like, I want that too, to where that maybe yeah, there's one that's going to include maybe like a little reddish, purplish type background or something like that, and maybe that no, it's not going to be what you call that little logo type, or that typographical. You'll look around the edges, whichever, but mainly about the American Eagle right here. And if we can see this right here on the seal right here that I included right there, or as example right there of the stars right there, along with the White House design right there. So that right there, the way I was pasting that in is that you're supposed to be right there, example right there of like of the White House right there, along with the wingspan of the eagle right there. So a lot of times it sure seems that way to where that if you're gonna maybe be you know, you having like a seal like that, and let's just say that if it's part of my research to where about exactly about what do you think that's let's say you talk about for Brave America. Well, what I mean by Brave America is to word that you're speaking up for my own words and all that. But for based on what I see though, it sure seems that way to where that you have maybe 20 years of history of these US presidents, and maybe it could also even include even the vice presidents, but still, I know with me to look up about the history of these presidents, and you're likely one or two that is to where you try to remember which ones that passed the certain bills, and anything that's involved with what you call if it's insurance, and as well as educational reasons and stuff like that, tax reform and all that. But the way I think about too, though, that they about for Brave America right here, likely one that yeah, that anything that you speak about, especially, but really though, it seems like to me though, is it really it's trying to get everybody to come together and just to get along, but still, in case of anybody that may say that yeah, that not everybody's really going to agree on everything, but let's just say though that maybe if you could agree on a few things, and thinking is toward that yeah, you could probably get a team, get a group together, and knowing about that you probably can get things done if it's done properly. It needs to be done properly. But talk about right here, or talk about for like any source of American history, especially. So you're likely thinking too is to where that if it goes by is to where that 10 people in a group that could work on the same project, but then only one person can speak up about all that was worked on. So let's just say that yeah, you got one speaker, but then all together that you have about maybe 8 people that are of course putting together certain flyer or maybe a certain paper or something like that. So if you got a group of about maybe 10 people and one person that can make a speech, it is. And I can thinking too though that number one though that yeah, that the look on the person's eyes, especially though that if you had this like what you call this bright blue type that star looking glacial eye you look on there, and 102 is to where yeah, bright as the star. So let's just say that you people likely say is to where if you look at your eyes like this right here, and like say yeah, bright as a star, does that really represent maybe for the American anthem to where the yeah for the Star Spangled Banner? So I'm like you say yeah, for I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, individual with liberty and justice for all. And so let's just say that and people are actually thinking too is to where whenever you do sing the Star Spangled Banner and look at the flag, and at 102 is that to where a lot of things, the national anthems, the things that you remember hearing about, even whenever you were in school. And 102 is to where that really though that if you're being graded for all that, and necessarily as I say, yeah, that I guess holding gentlemen will hold their. I'm like, yeah, I don't think that I even hold my hands over that. But a lot of times it's like this: the gentlemen who hold their hands over their hearts like this. But a lot of ways, I'm likely say too that how many of us who maybe weren't to word exactly what is that supposed to mean like that? Whenever the gentlemen, yeah, the gentlemen are supposed to, yeah, that what the gentlemen are supposed to be doing is to where that they're not supposed to be patting their head on like that, or whichever you call it, or combing their hair, and they're not supposed to be what you call lifting their collar. I'm like, yeah, that's not how you sing the Star Spangled Banner right there. You're not supposed to twirl your collar like this. Yeah. If you're supposed to meet some, I'm like, yeah. If you were supposed to meet somebody somewhere, and likely one or two that, yeah, to talk about something, yeah, people maybe say too is to where that you raise the collar up like that just because yeah, well you want to shake the person's hand, or if anything that you want to impress somebody somehow, so you can go and put your collar up like that and say if anything goes wrong and it just automatically drops. But the way I think about it too though that when we think about it's like the seal right here, and no, that people likely weren't to where that CEO, and exactly about how do you spell it, and if anything, how's it spelled backwards? You tried, but anyway, but talk about right here that I know that, and I'm sure that most of us have probably heard that before, talking about right here, talking about for friends. So, and they're likely thinking too is to where that, yeah, do you really have to love, something, but even though if you can't always agree on everything, and just knowing about the fact about despite about what the grade is, it's like if you even take a C, you maybe a C minus for all the hard work that you do, even if it's for one project, one assignment it is, and just say that yeah, well, you're supposed to do the research and write a paper about for who you picked, for if it's congressman or if it's for president, but anyway, I used to say that yeah, talk about for friend, for friend, but the way I think about though too is to where I talk about for classmates, and so I know we all probably thinking too is to where that if you're going to be in the classroom, no, and want to know too is to where you want to dress nice, and then as well as you want to have everything all ready and prepared, such as if a paper is going to be due that day, and a lot of times it sure seems that way to where that yeah, somebody that in the classroom, and like I say, is to where if you don't have your assignment ready, or if anything you forgot to bring it in, or something like that, or you can't really give it to a teacher just because it's not ready or something like that, but. Hey, I know with me, I try to be on the best behaviors as well as that people say is to where if you're going to be talking to anybody in the classroom, and it sure seems that way to where the first thing that you're going to maybe talk about is the fact about that, yeah, well, your paper has to be written a certain way or you got to go by the requirements or something like that. But still, that I know with me though, it is like say Brave America basically what I mentioned right here, talk about say, yeah, you just try not to be shy whenever you want to talk about something, especially if you're trying to make a difference, right? But still that want to know too is to where that really can Brave America really be about something about maybe inviting somebody for lunch or maybe inviting somebody for a date or something like that. And I say, yeah, you tell somebody that you're going to maybe call them at a certain time and want to know too. But the way I think about though is talk about the for Brave America right here though that you have right here is the American flag right here. But I'm just like one or two that American flag we probably seen that quite a few times. But let's just say though that if you're going to be giving a speech though, and let's just say that maybe that if I were to be putting like a little drawing like that, maybe in front of something that's maybe supposed to represent maybe for a business of some kind or maybe for insurance. So people like to say is that yeah, that you do Brave America right here, but then also do something like that that maybe represents for a company. They would like to see something like a business card design right here. And like I say, is to where do something that represents for a company. And I'm likely learned to where that for any sort of design, no, but still that we probably already know that most company designs what more likely requires is to where that yeah, if you're going to use like a logo design right here, that companies will probably say that yeah, well, especially if you're trying to get everybody's attention, especially that it sure seems that way to where that well, number one, oh my god, it may require a link and it may even require you to download and install a certain mobile app, especially. But really though, that if this right here, and yeah, that the way I put this together, kind of like, I'm like, yeah, if this right here was supposed to be like a commercial advertisement right here, and I want to know too that if that's supposed to be, yeah, if you're going to be drawing anybody in particular, I'm like, you're making a speech about something, and want to know that why don't you draw maybe a picture right there of like a showing somebody how something works, such as the mobile app right here, and maybe about maybe three or four steps right down here about what they can do so far as how to use something. But still, that I know with me though that if you're going to be making a speech about something, does that maybe also mean about is to where that you're going to go ahead and think about maybe a source of advertisement or anything that you're able to come up with so far as that lip gloss. I'm like, but still, I know any source of flyer, especially. But really, though, that I just really think though is to where that just to kind of make it easy and more convenient for anybody. Because I know that almost everybody, probably thinking too, is to where that if you're trying to show somebody something and try to teach somebody something, and it sure seems that way to where that really though that the things that you might hear about maybe even on the radio that you might even get confused, such as look for that certain app in the store or something like that, but really though that I know with the American flag can mean a lot of things, especially. But the way I think about it too, though, that for anything that's related to like a history project, and as well as the research about these presidents, but still that whenever I look at some of these designs right here, also that I'm also thinking about is as to where that from whenever I start drawing these painting, these illustration colorings right here, I'm also talking about is to where there was one time to where that they were just black and white sketches until I added in a few, paints and flip a little bit of work done, for InDesign, you just be able to show it like that. So people likely learn to where that, yeah, if you're going to be looking at it, maybe in like a black and white sketch, and you may not know exactly what it is until you might look at it up closely. But still, that this right here is the same thing, everybody. But still, if I say that, yeah, if you're going to maybe have two duplicate copies right here. But anyway, people likely learn too that yep, that if you're going to have an extra copy of something, but still that really though that if I'm going to be looking at this, maybe like for a portfolio or something like that, or even for a magazine, and somebody's going to maybe ask me if I have an extra copy or something, but. Anyway, so yeah, to talk about say with the president's seal right here, because I know that if I say that if you're going to be taking it down notes or something like that, exactly, what does it basically mean that you say with the president's seal, and say that well that represents, for anybody say that yeah, is the president's seal supposed to really represent for any source of quotes necessarily? I'm like you learned that too, to where that if the president seals, at this, the American eagle right here, is it supposed to represent for any source of quotes necessarily? But I'm like, well, I'm like, it can, but the way I think about it too, it's supposed to represent, for the United States, for government, but still that I know with me though that whenever I'm putting it together though, I'm also thinking about it as to where that just kind of makes them easy to remember notes, and as well as for anything so far as if you want to go ahead and draw the American eagle along with the president's seal right here, because we all know that the way I drew this right here, that I included right there is the flag right there, along with the with the White House, but still that I know for sure that blue stripes and white stars and all that stuff, but yeah, mainly though I want to include right here is like the text wrapping right here. So yeah, most designers would probably say too that yeah, that whenever I first gotten a lot of graphic designing skills that I do, that I learned how to use text wrapping right here to where that yeah, that if you're trying to include a few text on a certain image though, then learning about how to allow the text to go around the border right here of the picture, and as well as writing it diagonally as well as sideways. So really though, that whenever we look at a quarter, whenever we even look at a $half coin or a quarter, that we might even see some text on there, and even with the dollar bills. But half the time that you probably weren't is to where that don't even know half the time what it says, but you're just, if anything, you're just gonna go ahead and spend the money. But really though, that if there's is there any source of coin out there? I'm like, let's just say if it is maybe the silver coin or treasury coin, is there one coin out there that represents maybe for the school of honor or something like that? Something that represents the school, the college that you went to, and maybe on campus. But let's just say though, if there is a coin like that, if anything, it's a voucher. And I would probably say people say that yeah, the coin I'm describing is more like a voucher, like if there's any sorts of scholarships and internships as well as the voucher. But and somebody that might even ask me too, so far as a lot of college students, is say that yeah, that if you can better explain just a little bit more about for most college students, if I say that yeah, if you can maybe better explain that to where about that for about basically about internships and as well as grants and all that. But I'm like, well, according to my understanding, that scholarships are based. I'm like, yeah, money paid to you just for participating in like the educational program as well as what the school has to provide, as well as yeah, any state about financial aid and all that stuff. But let's just say though that with most of the time, if it's even with with Pell Grants and all that, that let's just say though that due to research though that we might think is toward that most college students might think is to where you might look forward to, a lot, maybe the money paid to you at some point, maybe within the next 2 or 3 years or so in the long run, so far as while you're going to be going to school, that you're keeping track of maybe during class hours and maybe during the academic period and all that stuff, and you're likely one or two is to where that really though that there are times to where that it will get tough, and it will get tough, and especially from all the schoolwork that you may have going on, especially that if you're talking about overtime hours, and like anybody you probably think too is to where that yeah, overtime hours that with overtime hours that you were talking about maybe that you spend maybe 3 hours extra working on something, and at half the time you're likely weren't to where that really though that whenever you start attending college, that you may have agreed to only go part time, and let's just say that that only included maybe only 20 to 30 hours a week, but then let's just say if you work hard enough, and then it could maybe be up to maybe 35 to maybe 40 hours a week. So sometimes it seems like the question kind of goes by is do you really max out on how many hours you spend working on something? And let's just say if that is the case, I'm like, really, if there's anything really wrong about that, such as to where now how do you know if the job's going to get done if you don't spend maybe more time on it? And so it seems like to me that that's kind of like the question to where if we do the calculations, and let's just say that that maybe the whole 5 days or so of the week, that let's just say if you spend maybe 10 total hours every day working on something, and you may ask that to where that do you really believe that maybe that if you put a lot of overtime into the work that you've been working on, so a lot of some students or anybody who's going to be working that they might say is to where that you may have agreed to do something part time, or if anything that you may thought that it was only going to last for maybe for a couple of days, maybe only for about 4 or 5 days or something like that. And just like even if it's freelancer work or something, but as we all probably already know too, is to where that yeah, it's not really about and half the time, it sure seems that way. It's not really about the fact about that whenever you start working on something around 1 o'clock in the afternoon or maybe 8 o'clock in the morning, and you expect it to be done by 1 o'clock. But let's just say if you go back and check a couple times, and so it sure seems that like having to keep a routine schedule. Yeah, having to keep a routine schedule, and to me that sounds a lot to keep track of, especially. But if we're talking, I'm like, yeah. So if you want to say is this tour that just kind of keep notes, and like if this was right here is supposed to be like what's called for good luck right here, and but still that I know with me though that like other than portfolio, but really what's the best solution really for keeping the progress going, especially like if you can really see progress. But let's just say though that that whenever you start working on something, the first thing that you're gonna maybe say is to where that yeah, it should only take about maybe a couple of hours to work on something, and then you check back maybe later on in that afternoon, and then find out that there's more. Of course, it needs to be done. Especially, you might find out almost on almost everything you do really, and and so, like I was mentioning before, about is to where that you may think is to where that a lot what you were working on, and you may think that it's all done, and all everything's all ready, but still that but the way I think about it too, though, is that whenever you start working on something, and like I say, yeah, I think from the last video I posted was talking about is it quite normal just to see something wrong with something, and yeah, that whenever you're gonna be looking at something for a long period of time, and let's just say that you may not see anything wrong with this painting right here, but let's just say on the front cover right here, that is it quite normal if you're gonna be staring at something for a certain amount of time, and let's just say you might find something wrong with it. And want to know too, is that quite normal to where that you're going to maybe find something that you really highly recommend, something that maybe you might say too that somebody else is maybe going to mention about something else that needs to be improved. And so, what does that necessarily mean whenever that happens? And really, though, that does that mean that necessarily to where that there was a few mistakes made, or if anything, that that just basically means that yeah, people were able to provide feedback and provide their opinions about stuff, and so it sure seems that way to where that almost it seems like maybe almost every job that you're going to have is to where that yeah that you're going to maybe have it to where that people are going to be providing feedback and so yeah, if you're going to go ahead and just yeah, if you're going to just present a blank page like that, maybe not everybody's really going to know what to say, and at the time, like I said, that's basically another way of how you wanted to begin the speeches to where that if people are staring at a blank page, that's not going to give them any idea really about what can be approved and then really what can be discussed and all that. So that's why even if this right here shows right here something, I don't know what that's supposed to mean, all that, but still, that if you look at this closely, and you might find a few things right or wrong about it, but the way I think about it too, though, that really for what can be really be approved, and so really, anything that I'm like, yeah, eyes on tape, I think is what I called it, and but still, that so far as the eyes on tape, but I know for sure that something that catches your attention, especially. So it seems like to me, though, that really, is it quite normal to see something wrong with something? But still, that you probably thinking too is to where one job that you thought that would only take you about maybe 5 minutes to check something and just to make sure everything was all right, and then find out that yeah, you spent about maybe 20 or 30 minutes longer working on something, and that you see maybe a few things wrong or maybe something that could be improved or worked on for later on. So it sure seems that way that with most jobs though, and it could be chores, and I guess if you want to kind of call it as tour chores, the top of chores I'm talking about are like while you're on your computer and checking up on some stuff, and like I'm thinking too that if you're going to be in front of your computer, and you might think that yeah, it should only take you about maybe five minutes, maybe to make sure that the clock is set correctly and all that. But really though, that yeah, I just really think too is to word it that if you're going to be thinking about anything that you can maybe do within 5 minutes, if anything, is like anybody say that really if there's really any such thing, but I could probably think of maybe a couple things, but one of them, of course, is to make sure to check to see what the battery status looks like, and you're probably thinking too that that shouldn't take very long, and especially if you're going to have it on charge for a long time. But still, checking the maybe checking the technical status as well as updates, especially checking for updates, which a lot of times they say that that's usually goes by a weekly schedule for updates. So yeah, there are a lot of things about the job that you might think too is to where that if jobs could be done very quickly though, and at the time you weren't too, that is to where you might need to gather up all the results and maybe show somebody about what you came up with within the past couple of hours, and it could be it could be 12 hours in between time. So the people I say is to where that if you're going to maybe yeah, that 12 hours seems like a long time, everybody. I'm like if we were to look at the clock and I say, yeah, round coin like a clock right here. If we were to look at a clock and at 1:02 is that, 12, 12 hours, between midnight to noon. No, I'm like, you probably thinking too, that seems like an awful long time, really to know about, okay, if there's any progress coming along and as well as checking back with a certain time of the hour, between midnight and maybe 3 a.m. that you're going to be checking up on something. But still, that, people might likely think too, it's really all about really kind of getting used to it, especially, but still, that, in case I say that, yeah, well, for anything for what you call brave America, especially though. But I'm like, yeah, that if you're going to have a birthday, especially around July, and it's the things that you talk about, especially, I'm like, really, what have you learned from me? So yeah, what have you learned from me? But I could probably say too, though, that whenever I'm going to be looking at some of these designs, and especially the tools that I use, especially that it sort of seems that way to where that you may think as to where that you look at something and you might know something that can be improved, especially, but way I think about it too, though, is I mainly want to show everybody here is this writing right here because this right here talks about educational reasons and all that. If we can all see that what that says right there, but still that I know that I really don't think really in case if people like I say is to where why would there be any purpose of why you want to do that? Why would you want to write in like a path to where do you think that maybe for any reason at all that you would maybe think is to where that you would be able to fit more room that you would be able to explain what this design is if you kind of write in like a diagonal type way right here to where there's words and sentences written on this painting right here on this illustration painting, but just kind of like going vertical, like diagonal, like if you're looking at like a word search type puzzle or something like that. So why would you really want to experiment around with that? But the way I think about too, though, that whenever you look at a seal like this right here with the American eagle, though, that one thing that kind of approaches your attention, and I guess one thing to me is to where about what age or so, and about reading and writing especially. So whenever I look at the American eagle like that right there, and 102 is to where what exactly that does come to your mind whenever I think about that. And to me, though, that other than that represents for the United States, does that also represent for the White House, and that also does that also represent maybe for the grade book? And I guess the way I put it together right here is more likely what it kind of represents for my portfolio and as well as for the grade book. And so likely thinking too is that whenever you talk to a few of your classmates and one or two, they're going to maybe ask you as to where to, hey, did you pass the history exam? Like, and well, you didn't do very well on it, but still, I guess you say you don't really have to talk about the details about that really, but still, if you feel comfortable talking about something, if you didn't do very well on it, but really, though, the way I think about it, though, is like I was just thinking too that FFRIND, for friend, but really, people likely think it was to word that's like what you call it, kind of like a tease to where that if A stood for audition and let's just say if B stood for best, for because it's the best or something like that, but C if you want to call it C for cat or C for can or something like that. But the way I think about too, though, that yeah, that what whenever somebody gives you more work, if you're going to be assigned a job or something like that, if you're chosen for a job, especially, and so it shows, it seems like to where let's just say for Brave America, and let's just say if you are picked, to do a job, and at the time you weren't to where that you didn't fill out the application and don't know exactly. So yeah, if you start getting emails about something and want to know too that I'm like at the time you may want to that speak to the president and want to know too that what does that basically mean if you're picked to do a job? Maybe if you were chosen to be like yeah maybe if it is maybe for terms for jury duty or something like that, or maybe it could also maybe be related to about something else that is related to maybe for educational reasons, and maybe anything about maybe for like something going on for Memorial Day or something like that. So so it sure seems that way to where that yeah, Brave America could. I'm like, yeah. To me, though, a lot of people probably say that, yeah, well, it's supposed to be like a cartoon character necessarily. It's supposed to represent for a cartoon, but let's just say though that other than like Captain America, what I'm talking about is that to where a boy brave enough to talk around a group of people, and let's just say about between what is right, what is wrong, and talk about for the American spirit as well as the basic rights, and so yeah, from all the stuff that's going on, and 102 the basic healing especially. So let's just say though that if there are cures for certain infections and diseases, as well as that for what to think about is to where that the things that make a difference, especially. So let's just say that that maybe President Seal or something like that, and let's just say that it is maybe research, or maybe if you do talk to certain doctors or terminologist, or maybe a therapist or somebody like that, and likely one or two is to where that really what is so real about that, like, and well really though that this right here could maybe also represent for a portfolio and then also maybe for a grade book. So let's just say though that the teacher may not have been very impressed with this, or maybe the hiring, company or business may not have been very impressed with this. But still, though, at least that knowing about that, whenever I think about this right here, I'm like, yeah, it's supposed to represent, for like, yeah, I drew this right here. It's supposed to be my drawings right here. So it sort of seems that way to where my work, my work. And but really though, in case if somebody were to ask me too, I'm like, I think about that a lot of times. I'm like, I can thinking too that one of your designs. I'm like, one of your designs, if it approaches somebody, and you likely weren't too, is to where that with a lot of your designs, if you might, like, yeah, if you maybe see them maybe printed on maybe on the t-shirts and the pillowcases or something like that, and people likely weren't too, is to where that you go ahead and like, yeah, if other people that may find that expiring to where that for audition to where that yeah, you go ahead and follow the instructions on something on how to put something together. Maybe if it's like a puzzle or something like that, and then maybe people say that they want to keep it, just for expiration, just something to remember by, and as well as for if you think that's going to maybe help somebody else to where they're able to succeed and for what they've been working hard for, something like that. But anyway, photographer for Brave America, I understand about the basic importance about the CEO right here, and as well as for the Brave America speech right here, and as well as another thing I want to talk about is talk about for the grades. And so I know that yeah, that most of our children and grandchildren probably say too is that a lot of times that whenever they are given their final grade maybe after 5 weeks or so of class, or maybe 8 weeks or so, whenever they look at their grade book, that the kids are going to be looking at the grade book, students are going to be looking at the grade book. And I can think that they might not be very happy to really to see it or to hear it, but at least to knowing about it, so say, yep, well, you did, you worked hard and you did the best you could, really, for what all that matters, huh? I'm like, really, if that's really all that matters, or the fact about you're going to be making teases about something. But let's just say that chances are that you might pass the class just because that you've earned those extra credit hours, and as well as if you earn that extra, extra bonus credit. And so let's just say if you did come very close to passing that class, and you thought that maybe you were not going to pass that class, but then you wind up being surprised, yeah. So half the time it's like, yeah, surprises them. I'm like, really, do we really see that? I'm like, even if it is, even if it is, maybe if it's a stimulus package or something like that, if taxes are a stimulus package, and you may want to choose to, or do we see any surprises, any of that stuff? But you might say, yep, you might just be surprised. But anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Talk about for Brave America.